And we're here on Facebook Live on facebook.com/livenowdt, as well as on mixlr.com/wakeupcall DT. Proud to be here with you every Monday through Friday, and we appreciate you for hanging out with us inside of the Midweek Blitz. The Midweek Blitz coming to you every single Wednesday morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time with Julian Whigham. Julian Whigham, an alum of Syracuse University's football program, here to speak with us today on what's going on, the woes of Syracuse football. We're here to talk about Duke and Syracuse, the game that just happened, Liberty at Syracuse, as well as the injuries that have happened to Tommy DeVito and Andre Cisco, and what the team looks like right now. Julian Whigham hanging out with us from the great state of Florida, bringing some sunshine to somewhat of a dark conversation that we've had to have over these last few days. Julian, how are we doing today?
I'm doing well. Like I say all the time, can't complain, man. This Florida sun, like you mentioned, always good to me.
Yeah.
Shining the sun this morning makes it a little easier to wake up.
Yeah, man. You know, it's nice here. You know, but I'm in hibernation mode right now because of the coolness of it and it getting dark sooner and whatnot. Like, I wake up in the morning with that. You know, I'm like, you get up in the morning and I'm like, man, I can't wait to go back to bed. You know what I mean? So, like, you have one of those. Have you ever had one of those days where, like, you wake up and you're just like, I cannot wait to curl back up in this bed? I mean, it's not a lazy thing. It's just like this. I don't know how to describe it. Just, I mean, people that live in Syracuse, they know. There's that feeling of, like, you get up and then you want to go right back to bed.
Yeah, I was about to say, that was a much stronger feeling when I was living in Syracuse. I don't know what it is about the skies there, but I can remember most of my 4 years, whenever I got up, maybe because of football too, but I can remember just about every time I got up, I was like, dang, I cannot wait to lay back down. Like, you look outside, it's still dark, you're just like, man, this feels like 9 o'clock right now. You're ready to get right back into bed. I think that's might be a trend of Syracuse, man. Just makes you want to stay in bed a little bit longer.
Yeah, man, just like watch some shows, curl up. I got to tell you though, like I'm back on my, I feel like when I started to say I'm back up on my, it was making me think of Janae Aiko, who is a beautiful, beautiful human being. But it was funny. Somebody asked me on my show, they're like, what type of girl do you want? I was like, find me a Janae Aiko. So, like, just do that for me. I'm good. But last night, I was back up on my Game of Thrones. I never finished it. So I went back to it and kind of like going back into like an old box that you didn't unpack from the house. And I still had to watch Season 7 and Season 8. Did you ever watch Game of Thrones? If you did, please don't tell me anything. And I'm currently watching Season 7. But, once I start watching, I watch late. And then, of course, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to bed before midnight. And then it's 1:20 in the morning, and I'm watching the next episode. So, have you seen it? And what can you, if you did, what can you say about it?
Yeah, so Game of Thrones, while it was on, I'll say seasons, really for me, seasons 2 through 6 were like, I was there for every episode, every Sunday, like just ready to go. Like, I would be antsy in meetings with coaches, like, all right, like it's about that time, coach, like let us go, like ready to get back home so I could watch the show. Like, the Game of Thrones for me was when it was on, I thought it was the best show on television. I watched all, I think it's 8 seasons. Disappointed that. I think you kind of saw the Twitter feed about Game of Thrones at the end. But I was one of the fans that were disappointed about the ending. But I loved the series. It was my favorite show. I even still, like, I've watched back through. I don't watch the last couple seasons, but I've watched back through it again, 2 through 6. Yeah. That is one of my favorite shows. Probably my top 3 television shows of all time. Like, when I'm telling you, when it was on, I was there. Don't text me. Don't call me. Don't talk during the show. Like, because that starts fights. That's one of my rare roommate fights. Don't talk during the show. Yeah. Just pay attention. Like, that was one of my favorite television shows of all time. I love Game of Thrones. I didn't think I'd like it either. When I started, I'm like, this is whack. But then I kept going through it, and I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, I got about once I got through to season 2, I was hooked and ready to go, and from that point on, like, I was locked in.
I love that, man. I love that. Man, this is whack.
Yeah, I'm telling you, like that's the thing. I think a lot of people hit that point too, where they're just like, "This is the wackest show on television." Like, I don't want, but for whatever reason, you watch that next episode, and some people don't. But I was there. I stuck with it, and it ended up being one of the most rewarding television experiences I've ever had. So, like I said, man, top 3. Television shows of all time. Not going to give you any spoilers, man. It seems like you're enjoying it, but I wish I could go back and get a chance to watch those episodes for the first time again.
Well, how about this? This this thing has been like, I went back and watched season 1 at like the start of Rona. Well, no, like before the start of Rona, and then I took a break, and now it's season 7 and season 8 that I'm watching. And my buddy said to me, he goes, for someone who, and this is his words, he said, for someone who is like a tech pioneer and guru, how have you not, like, he's like, how did you stay away from, like, any of the spoilers, any of the, like, I know absolutely nothing about anything about the show until I saw it, and I don't know anything about season 7 and season 8, except for in season 8 that there's like some mistakes in water bottles and stuff. But like, besides that, I know absolutely nothing about the show. Like, I know nothing. So anybody that's watching and listening right now, if like I am a peaceful person, if you tell me something, I'm also an Italian, I'll send someone to the house. Like, I mean, I don't want to know, like, I don't want to know anything about, and I don't. I know absolutely nothing. He's like, how do you not? I said, I don't know. I stayed away from it. I saw anybody post about it. I was like, no, I'm out. I'm not checking it out. I will tell you that, like, I have my dream team. Like, I got my squad, and I forgot about some of them. Like, Arya Stark, that girl is a G. Like, if she was on a defense, and like, she is lethal. You know what I mean? So like, Arya's on my team. Arya, I don't know her name, but the grandma, I love the grandma. Like, the grandma that has that like big hat looking veil thing. She's a G for real. Like, if I was an older man, I would hit on that woman because she's fierce. So grandma, Tyrion Lannister. The only Lannister that I like. Yeah. So Tyrion's my dude. Of course, Daenerys and them dragons, because your boy's a dragon fan. So if I put my team together, and then Jon Snow, and then my wolf Ghost. So, like, that would be like my squad, and probably the redheaded wildling guy, because he's just funny and awesome. And then the blonde-haired female fighter, the warrior that protects Sansa, she'd probably be on my team. So I started to put like my Game of Thrones team together, and I totally forgot. So when I started watching the last couple episodes last night, I'm like, man, my team is stacked. Like, if this was a fantasy football team, I'd be winning like 200-10 weekly. So like, I feel good. I don't know what's gonna happen. I know that I don't know this, but I'm concerned that I'm gonna lose somebody, and I have like a list of people, like I said, obviously, but then like the people I can't lose, and so I know that certain ones of them are gonna make me like emotional. They're going to make me upset. I'm going to be frustrated. I'm going to call you. I'm going to need, you're going to have to sing me a lullaby. Sarah McLachlan's going to have to make a commercial about it. Like, I'm going to have a moment, and I don't want to have it, but I know that this show kills off people that I like. So I got to be ready. But what do you think of not giving any spoilers, what do you think about my dream team of what is it? Arya, Tyrion, the dragons, the dragon lady, she awesome. And then and grandma, got grandma in the thing. I have my redheaded dude. I got Jon Snow. I got Ghost, and I have my blonde-haired protector as well. And I'm so that's, I mean, there might be another one or two, but that's like my squad.
Yeah, man. So I would tell you, this is the best way to put it. So I won't give you spoilers, but you have a great, great team. But I don't think you're going to make it all the way to the end of the playoffs.
Bro! No! know. I can't, man. I'm so mad. I know, because, like, I know it's gonna, happen. There's just, and the thing, like, I never thought that I could get my stomach around watching incest. And, like, you know what I mean? As much as you see it. It's like, you see your favorite football team struggle. You watch a show that has incest and lots of murder, and you're like, I'm going to watch Game of Thrones more than I'm going to watch this game right now. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, you can bring yourself to, like, wrap your head around, oh, that's his sister, and also his wife. You know what I mean? It's just, it's a very, I mean, I guess it brings us all the way back to what you said, where you're like, man, this show is whack. You know what I mean? It's like...
Well, that's the thing. It's like, the show is great. I love the show because of, like, the shock value it had, like the way it kind of hits you visually was always like my entry, like, yo, whoa, what am I seeing right now? You got the little internal conflict real fast, but you're still stuck to it. So, like, I think that's like the draw of the show.
Bro, it's like my old relationships. Like, I was afraid of it. I didn't feel safe in it, but I kept watching it.
I'm telling you, it's part of the ride. It's part of the ride. That's why we go back.
Like some of them girls that go into the house, I'm like, am I going to die today? Well, I guess we'll see on this episode.
It's all part of the excitement, man.
Oh, man. We're wilding out on the show today here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Oh, my God. So we're here to talk about Syracuse football. We've done 0% of that this morning, but we will. So let's jump into it. Mr. Julian Whigham here with us inside of the midweek Blitz. Julian here with us every Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time, talking with us about what we see and what's going on with Syracuse football. Julian, let's hop into it and let's take a look at it. Syracuse facing off against Duke. What did you take away from this game?
I was really disappointed in myself for overlooking Syracuse's run defense and not thinking that it could be a problem against Duke or going forward. They give up an average of more than 200 yards a game. They had given up 264 yards to Georgia Tech the week prior. And that was stressful to me because I'm a real big fan of the 3-5 defense as a player. It was one of my favorite defensive formations because of, as a DB, all the flexibility that you had. But we're seeing some of the schematic flaws of it, where the inside run is available, the gap integrity isn't there, and because it requires, it's kind of like a 3-4 deep. Whenever you got 3 down linemen, you've got to have fat kids up front. You've got to have those big, strong. They got to be those guys who can plug up gaps, that can take on double teams, and like you got to have those Chris Slayton types in there. I don't think Syracuse has that on the roster right now, and that's going to make it really difficult to defend the run in the ACC and going forward, because these teams are going to keep producing these 6'5", 6'4", 315, 310-pound centers and guards who can move guys out of the way. And when you've got a clear space, you're getting chunk gains of 4 or 5 yards, reaching linebackers. I mean, and they're making tackles all game. That's a bad recipe for your defense and stopping the run. So as this Duke game went on, and you see 2 guys, over 150 yards rushing, that says a lot about how poor the run defense was. And Duke schemed it up perfectly. They saw it on tape, and they went after it. They were averaging 101 rushing yards per game coming in, and, they were able to amass more than 300. I thought that was a really incredible job by Duke and their coaching staff. But on the other side of that, Syracuse's defensive staff should have recognized that the run defense is poor and found a few ways, whether that's with more run blitzes, filling up gaps rather than trying to scheme a guy open, or playing more guys in the box. They were playing about 5 to 6, and I think it would have been better for them to be close to 6 and sometimes maxing out at 8, and then spreading those guys out to protect against the pass. But there was a lot of disappointment from me in terms of Syracuse's run defense last week. Duke took advantage of it. They're an 0-4 team, and I think Syracuse really had a chance to win that game, and it would have been a big win for them. So going into this week against Liberty, I think there's an opportunity to fix some of those things and clear them up during practice and in the game. But, I think that's the glaring issue right now for Syracuse and the Syracuse defense.
Yeah, and Syracuse historically not doing well in recent history against running quarterbacks, and they were able to do a pretty good job against Jeff Sims and then running back Jahmyr Gibbs of Georgia Tech. Okay job, not a great job, but against Duke, I mean, I know Duke can run the ball, but 363 yards allowed by Syracuse. Some teams don't allow that in total yards, from passing and rushing combined in a game. They allowed Deion Jackson to have 160 yards rushing, Mateo Durant to have 163. I warned people of Deion Jackson. I also warned them of the big play Durant, who had 2 touchdowns in the game rushing. We had Jackson rush for 5.6 yards a carry, Mateo Durant for 7.1. They combined for 53 of the team's 63 carries, and they combined for 332 of the team's 363 yards. They ran the ball 40 more times than Syracuse. Mark Henze-Pierre ran it once. Rex Culpepper, that was a sack. Tommy DeVito, obviously him getting sacked, comes down 9 carries for negative 19 yards. And Sean Tucker, 12 carries for 53 yards, 4.4 yards a carry. They didn't give the ball enough to Sean Tucker. I know, he's a little banged up, whatever, but they didn't give the ball enough to Sean Tucker. They didn't rush the ball enough. Syracuse didn't commit to it. I said when they did it in the Georgia Tech game, when they ran on the first series and they ran on the second series, committing to the run helped them to win the game. They didn't commit to the run hardly at all in this matchup. When they did give the ball to Sean Tucker, even when he was catching passes out of the backfield, he was the lone guy looking good out there, but they didn't consistently go to it, which is a level of frustration. And, I mean, when you hear those numbers, Julian, 63 carries, 363 yards, 5.8 yards a carry. Syracuse, 23 carries, 28 yards, 1.2 yards a carry, which is obviously marred by the sacks that happened. And I want to also let it be known that Syracuse was sacked 6 times on paper by Duke. It felt like 10, at least, but they were sacked 6 times, which means that Syracuse's offensive line and their quarterback, because I do put some onus on the quarterback in this, in 4 games, Syracuse has given up 21 sacks, an average of over 5 sacks per game. Enlighten me on the rushing issue a little bit more, and then let's talk about the fact that Syracuse has given up 21 sacks in a game, which is averaging over 5 a game.
Yeah, so the run game issues are, really contingent on how Syracuse has been trying to game plan. I think a major part of this 3-5 and how it improves going forward is getting is personnel. I mean, one, you can coach up as much as you want to, and it seems to me that this defense is going to really pride itself on turnovers, which, for the public, understanding a defense, if I'm a coordinator and I give up 500 yards of offense a game, but I'm creating 3 or 4 turnovers a game on top of that, I have a great defense. Because I'm taking the ball away, and chances are the points per game is going to be low. The points per game that I'm giving up is low. If I'm giving my offense the ball back more than 2 or 3 times a game, I'm doing my job. I'm creating the turnovers that you need, and yards per game almost don't matter. But obviously, it doesn't work out like that all the time, and you want to get stops, you want to prevent the offense from moving the football. But it seems to me that this defense prides itself more on its back-end coverage. That's where the talent is, too. So I would do the same thing. But it seems that this defense is priding itself on that back, 7, 8 guys rather than those front 3 or 4. Yeah. And I think to be a complete defense, they have to obviously engage all 11 players. And I think that comes with recruiting. I think it comes with kind of finding the size. And that's another thing, like my own little Syracuse thought fear is once they start to focus on their lines, it's kind of transitioning to the offensive side. But once they start to focus on the trenches, defensive and offensive lines, where they got truly the size in the middle, size on the outside, both on the defense and on the offensive side of the ball, I think Syracuse football in general will become more consistent. I think we started to see that a little bit with Marone's teams because they were so focused on the offensive line, the trenches. We had Marone himself was an offensive lineman, so he knew the value of having a front. And then on the side, on top of that, I think Syracuse, they're always going to be behind on the talent front when it comes to recruiting in the ACC. but you can get around that by being bigger and stronger than everybody else in the ACC. Teams like Wisconsin and the Big Ten, teams like
even
Stanford.
in the ACC, Boston College, they prided themselves on that.
Right, Boston College and the ACC, Wisconsin, Stanford, teams like kind of Ole Miss right now with Lane Kiffin, but teams in the SEC, but teams that focus on the trenches and have size can keep themselves afloat. Not, they don't always win 10 games a year, but they'll keep themselves in that 6 to 8 range and consistently go to bowl games because they can win in that area. Teams may beat you in talent, but if you are stout on the defensive line and the offensive line, you can win a lot more games that way. We saw that with Syracuse the past few years when they had talented defensive ends. That was that won them a lot of games. Alton Robinson and those guys. We see what Alton Robinson's doing in Seattle. But when you've got guys on the defensive line, it makes life so much easier for you as a defense in general. And on the offensive side of the ball, we're seeing all of these sacks because there is no offensive line. These guys are not ready to play Division I FBS football. It's just, at this point, that's just what it is. I feel bad. No, I don't. Like, these guys, they're not ready to play. They're not ready to play. I don't know if they don't like DeVito or what, but they should feel a certain way that their guy got hurt. That's on them. That's just on them. He's been hit at least 50 times since the beginning of last year. That's unacceptable. And I'm beginning to wonder at some point, like, your pride is kicking as an offensive lineman. Like, I got to protect my guy. Culpepper should be in there fearing for his life this week because the line isn't ready. They haven't been ready to play. Whoever the offensive coach Kavanaugh, I personally don't think he's the guy. But these guys haven't been ready to play, and they haven't recruited the position well. The fact that you're putting a fullback at guard is disappointing. I don't see any other teams in the ACC doing that. I don't see any other teams in the FBS doing that. That shouldn't be happening. You shouldn't be struggling.
Maybe for maybe for like a trick play, but not like this is our guy. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, it just shouldn't be happening. But that's to the depth issues that Syracuse has had on the offensive line, and I really think there should be a focus on that position in particular because you can recruit all the talent in the world that you want, but if you don't have an offensive line, you're going to be a bad football team. I think that's where Florida State messed up. They stopped recruiting offensive linemen the way they used to. I can remember they had guys coming out of Florida that were always 4 and 5 stars going to Florida State. And that stopped around 2013, 14, and we see the results now. Syracuse, same way. You got to recruit the offensive line because we see how this offense is falling apart without it. The quarterback's getting hit. He can't make decisions. I think that ruined DeVito's career. You can't create connections with your receivers. The run game isn't there. This is one of the worst offenses again in the country, and it's because of the offensive line and their inability to block somebody, whether that's run blocking or pass blocking. So they need to improve. I don't think they have anybody that really should be starting right now. I mean, there's the one kid, Aaron Service, I think may start at other places. But outside of that, I don't see the necessary talent, and I'd like for them to focus more on that recruiting because outside of it, your offense can't function without it, and we're seeing the results.
Yeah, speaking here with Julian Whigham, my co-host inside of Midweek Blitz, bringing it to you every Wednesday inside of the Cafe Cubal studios, speaking on Syracuse football and college football in general, being able to have this discussion with you and to break it all down. And the reality of it all is, Syracuse is struggling on the offensive line. It's a clear and present thing. And the reality of it all is, as they struggle on this offensive line, like you said, they need to recruit it. They are. I spoke with a bunch of the guys. We actually had a nice Zoom call roundtable discussion, which was really cool. First time in history that I had multiple recruits on at the same time and on video. And I had 4 of the gentlemen on there, and there was also another one that I had spoken to as well that was unable to be on that specific call but has been on the show. And so when you look at that, Enrique A. Cruz Jr. coming from Illinois, one of the gentlemen that I spoke with for the offensive line, also the opportunity to speak, in these last few months with Kalen Ellis, who's coming from Hawaii, as well as another gentleman from Hawaii, Austin Cowhey, and Wes Ho and Tyler Magnuson. So I got to speak with all of these gentlemen at some point, and 3 of them were on the call together with me. I was with her. No, it was 4. It was Tyler and Wes and Austin and Enrique. And so, they are trying to recruit it. They're going down to Hawaii, trying to maybe emulate or copy what a UCLA or a Navy would do. So, it could be something, promising in the future. I appreciate these kids and I respect them, but, Syracuse really leaning on it in the 2021 incoming class with 5 offensive linemen that have committed to Syracuse. But, so 2 questions. The first one, Julian, what do you think about that, knowing that Syracuse is now trying to bring in at least 5 offensive linemen that have committed? And then secondly, if you are looking at Syracuse, do you look elsewhere as you've given your verbal yes, but you're seeing what they're putting on the field? And I asked that question because Austin Cowhey from Hawaii, after the Syracuse game, put a thank you out to UCF for recruiting him and giving him an offer. So what are your thoughts on them going after 5 linemen that have committed and said yes, but at the same time, you were in recruiting before. Do these guys take a look at what's on the field and go, yeah, I don't know if I want to have to go there and deal with that?
Yeah, so to the recruiting point, like that they're going out and starting to add those 5, I think that tells me, all right, they're seeing the same thing as everyone else, which is good. Like they're not blind to it. They're not, letting some kind of ego or something in the way. That they understand our offensive line needs to get better. So to see that they're actually putting the effort behind it is good. That's good to know. And then but as a recruit, seeing the offensive line struggle, I mean that's if anything, like as a recruit, you almost like was me and a few guys I've talked to, whether it be at Syracuse or anywhere else. What goes into your recruiting decision, almost I'll say 90%, because I'll say 99% of guys who play high school football and have the chance to play college at the Division I level, they have some sort of dream of playing in the NFL. And that goal determines a lot for them in terms of how much playing time they're going to get, what kind of opportunity they see for themselves, what kind of competition is in front of them. And when you see your unit not being particularly good, chances are that coach that's coaching at you, that's recruiting you, he's telling you all sorts of beautiful things about how you're going to come in there and change it around. And a lot of and they're young guys. They're young. They're 18 years old. They want to be part of change. They want to be part of building something. So to see your unit not be good, that doesn't really mean anything, I think, to the recruit, because he's thinking, I can come in there and make that unit better when I get there. There's a lot of ego from a lot of recruits. I mean, I had it. Guys who come in had it. Like, I still remember some of the old round tables when we were sitting in Ernie Davis about which one of us was going to start, and everyone thought they were going to start like between their freshman and sophomore year, and then we got on the field and we all sucked. Like, it was hilarious. But Ron was pretty good though. He was pretty good when he came in. But anyway, like guys come in and they expect to play. So on the other side of that, though, from a quarterback, maybe I'm worried about what I'm seeing on the field, because if you get in there and you start to play, that's your offensive line. Like this, I think most of those guys are returning, a good number of them. So you look at that offensive line, you're thinking, dang, I don't want to play behind that. So you may go somewhere else because you see what happened in Tommy DeVito's career. He was a promising recruit that never became anything because he never had an offensive line. So, I mean, it's one of those things where you're, as a unit, you're not really too concerned because you think you can come in there and change it as a recruit. But if you're someone affected by that unit, particularly the quarterback, you're saying, I want to go. Also, receivers, if they're seeing that the passing game isn't really there, you may be concerned. But, I've said this a ton of times. I think receivers should be one of those positions that Syracuse should be able to recruit, some of the best players out there, because the stat lines speak for themselves among the players that have been through the program already. I think they produced 2 All-Americans. Steve Ishmael was averaging like 8-9 catches a game. Like there's no reason, and at least 15 targets. So I thought receivers a position they could recruit. But to answer the 2 questions, as an offensive lineman, I think it's good that they're looking for them, but to see what's going on the field, I don't think that's going to deter them from committing. But yeah, I mean, it is good to get other interests. I mean, I like my little bit of interest from Miami, but once you're committed and you feel good about your decision, most guys don't sway from it.
Yeah, and so, if Syracuse is to get these gentlemen, it could be a good thing, and it's going to be an eclectic group from all over the country, from different places, including a couple from Hawaii, which would be very unique and special and show that connection between Dino Babers and the Islands, as well as Coach Kavanaugh, the offensive line coach, who has a connection down there to the university as well as to the state itself. Speaking here with Julian Whigham, assessing Syracuse through these first few weeks. Julian, a team's 0-4. They come into Syracuse, they get their first win of the season, first win in the ACC, and they put up almost 40 points in the game. The defense has been a bright spot of Syracuse. The defense has been something that the team has been able to lean on. In this game, the defense struggled with stopping guys on first contact, hitting the players and having that player essentially bounce right off or slide off of them. They were not able to bring them down immediately. That came with Chase Bryce, the quarterback. It came with Deion Jackson. It came with Mateo Durant. It came with the wide receivers. What are your thoughts on the defense after this game, giving up almost 40 points in the matchup? Granted, they got a bunch of takeaways, but I guess there's a couple things here. Number one, what did you see in the defense? Because I think this was their worst game of the season. Because in the other games, you're like, oh, okay, they did a good job against North Carolina. The offense blew it. They did a good job against Pittsburgh. The offense blew it. They did a good job against Georgia Tech. The offense did enough. But in this game against Duke, Syracuse's defense really didn't look that strong. And I have another thing after this, but let's start there. What did you see from the defense in this game and the tackling at first contact?
Yeah, so I think bad tackling almost always goes with poor run defense. Like almost always. Like first contact, if it's not there, obviously there's going to be an extra couple yards gains. And like that, I think that goes hand in hand with big rushing games, is bad tackling. And I don't know what it's like at other programs in terms of like how you practice tackling, but my general understanding of just across Power 5 football is that teams don't work on tackling that off. Like it's kind of dying out. Once you get to college, you're almost expected to tackle, and there's so many other things from like technique standpoints to schemes, understanding checks and what you're supposed to do on the field, that tackling gets overlooked. Like your tape in high school should tell coaches, do you have the ability to tackle? And the guys who end up being great tacklers are almost always like guys who have the size and they, on the defense side, have the heart to tackle. You kind of see who's kind of soft, it doesn't want to on tape in camp too. So the guys who are on the field, they typically have proven that they're willing to make contact, or they're good at something else and they hopefully don't want them to tackle. But from what I've seen so far, tackling seemed to be a bit of an issue. And that, I don't think that's a team thing. I think that's college football in general. So I won't go in on those guys in terms of missed tackles or not being as efficient as they could be. I mean, that's kind of a personal thing. And I think as a coach, like the best way to challenge a guy is to do it directly to him in meetings. Like when he is, I remember Coach Bulla a few years ago. We had a guy who he accused him of ducking tackles, and I think that's one of the greatest sins in football. If you're a defensive player, to duck a tackle, which means to make it look like you want to go in there and do it, but at the last second you kind of like duck your shoulder and kind of hope he falls, or you just miss entirely because you don't want to make that and coaches, sometimes, if you do it enough, like Coach Bullock calls it, he just put a highlight tape together of this guy missing tackles in practice, missing tackles in camp, practice, and then show him missing tackles in the game, and then told him that's why he doesn't play. And I was like, oh my gosh. But that was when the kid was at the time when that happened, was like, I think it was a redshirt freshman, sophomore year. And then he didn't end like this is a feel-good story. He didn't end up becoming like the greatest tackle ever, but he was much better afterwards. And I think sometimes that's all, because they didn't make him tackle more during camp or practice. All of a sudden, it just triggered in his mind, if this is what I need to do to get on the field. And then all of a sudden, he was a better tackler. So guys come in knowing how. It's just a matter of like having the stomach to do it. But to the run game point, in this defense, I mean that's again, this defense it's new. it's in its most skeleton form. That I'm sure they have a very limited amount of checks. I don't think they're playing any more than 3 coverages right now, between man, 3, and a mix of cover 2, and or maybe some cover 4. So that's at 4. I lied. Okay. Anyway, I think they're only playing a few coverages. I don't think they're making very many checks on their defensive side of the ball. And I think it's a very vanilla defense right now. So you're not getting all of the benefits of it, or at least not seeing all of the things that they could do. They don't have all the tools in the toolbox yet. So as that continues to develop, I think it'll be a much better defense next in year 2, just because they'll have more time to put in the blitzes and figure out how they want to stack boxes and all these different things. But right now, I think this defense is young. I'm not going to knock them too much because I think they still lead the country in turnovers right now. And that's something that's one of the most valuable things a defense can do for you. I can't really knock them right now. I think if the defense played the way they did up to these last few games, outside of Duke, I think Duke was a poor performance. But playing it the way they have at this point has been they've been one of the best defenses in the country. So I still have high praise for them. They had a bad game and they have to fix the run game. But going forward, man, I think that this is still going to be the best unit that Syracuse puts on the field for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and it's been amazing to see what Syracuse has been able to do defensively, and to really pick it up on that side of the ball the way that they have, with a new defensive coordinator coming in Tony White and switching to a 3-3-5. To your point, Julian, they do lead the nation. Kind of funny, the 2 teams that lead the nation, 2 teams I talk about a lot when it comes to turnover margin. Syracuse leads the country, has 6 fumble recoveries, which is not the most in the nation. The most in the nation is UCF. So Syracuse is second in the nation in fumble recoveries with 6, and they are first in the nation with interceptions. They are also first in the nation with turnovers gained. So there's a lot to be said about that, and pardon me, Syracuse. Opponent interceptions or opposing interceptions. So looking at some of the stuff here, but yeah, Syracuse. When you look at it and break it all down, Syracuse is currently leading the nation when it comes to takeaways. UCF is number 2, and UCF is very close. In 3 games, they have 12 turnovers gained. In 4 games, Syracuse has 14 turnovers gained. Andre Cisco wraps things up. We'll talk about Andre Cisco in a second. But speaking on the turnovers, let's go back to that game. How many times, and you as a former DB and playing on the defensive side of the ball, how many times do you expect a team to win, let alone defeat you by double digits, let alone score almost 40 points, when they fumble the ball 4 times, they lose the ball on those fumbles 3 of the 4 times, and the team also throws an interception? I mean, let's take a look at the numbers here and just what it's been for what it was for Duke in this game. They fumbled the ball they fumbled the ball 4 times in the game, twice by Chase Bryce, 1 by Deion Jackson, and 1 by backup quarterback Gunnar Holmberg. Fumbled the ball 4 times, lose 3 of them. There were 3 fumbles on 4 possessions. So in a consecutive run, there was 3 fumbles lost on 4 possessions, 4 fumbles overall. They lost 3 of those 4 in total, and Chase Bryce threw an interception. How strange is that as a defensive player to see that Syracuse forced 4 fumbles, recovered 3 of them, got an interception, and the team still lost and gave up almost 40 points?
Yeah. So as a defensive player, you're kind of looking at the offensive side, and you're like, it must be hard over there, huh? Because you're doing your job. You're doing your job. You're doing everything that you can. When you're creating there's this stat that a lot of defensive coordinators like to share with their defenses about turnovers. When you're +1 in the turnover margin, you've got about a 33% chance of winning the game. +2 ups your percentage to 66%, doubles it, right? And then on top of it, and then when you're +3, it rises to, I think it's 93%. I think it was 93% chance. Maybe I don't know why I want to say 87. I'm clouded today, but it's somewhere between 87 and 93% chance of winning the game when you're +3. So when I see that, taking that a little bit further from the data, the chances are when you're creating those turnovers, your offense is taking advantage of them, and I'm sure that goes into that pod percentage. But I'm sure if you're +1, +2, or +3 in a turnover margin, but you're not scoring off of any of those turnovers, that the percentages are much lower than presented. Because what's the value of a turnover if your offense isn't doing anything with the extra possessions, right? So as a defender, that's the most you can do. Take the ball away, give it back to your offense, give up as minimal amount of yards as possible. And when you see that you're grading well and your defense is playing as best as they can, you're looking at the offensive side of the ball like, come on, like this is a team effort. What are you guys doing? What have you guys been doing in your meetings? What are you guys doing in practice? Are you guys not focusing? You start to question, and that's how teams start to tear apart. When you've got one side carrying all of the weight and the other isn't carrying theirs, that's how teams fall apart. That's how teams start to separate themselves and start to chirp a little bit inside the locker room and separate. So it's important for teams on both sides, both units on each side of the ball, to maintain their fair share, because if not, teams start to separate, and that's how you start to see end of seasons fall apart. And culture fall apart inside of a locker room because interdivisions happening inside of a team. So I hope the leadership is good enough to the point where guys can still encourage each other and still motivate each other. But from my own experience, when the defense is playing well, early 2012 Marone, 2013 Schaefer, but the offense wasn't there, there was a lot of chatter both during the game, in the locker room, and at practice when the offense wasn't doing what they were supposed to. And I don't think it's much different right now over at Manly and Syracuse. So it's frustrating as a defender, but as a team, you've got to find a way to stick it out and figure that thing out, because you don't want your culture to fall apart because guys are starting to divide.
Yeah, and just to clarify here, in 4 games, Syracuse 6 fumble recoveries, 8 interceptions, leads to their 14 turnovers gained. UCF second in the nation, 3 games that they've played, 8 fumble recoveries, 4 interceptions, gives them 12. And then behind them, we see Army, West Point, and University of Texas San Antonio tied for third with 10. Those are the only 4 teams in the nation that have at least double-digit turnovers gained in their games this season. Army getting 10 in 5 games, Texas San Antonio getting 10 in 5 games, Syracuse 14 in 4 games. Absolutely tremendous. And that is a beautiful stat. The thing is you got 21 sacks that you gave up on the offensive side of the stats, and then on the turnovers gained, you're doing a fantastic job. And like Julian said, and couldn't have said any better, it doesn't really matter what you're doing when it comes to, defensively, yeah, you want to create those turnovers and create those opportunities, but at the end of the day, if you're not doing anything with them, then there's obviously going to be an issue moving forward. If you're not capitalizing on these turnovers, and there was a span for Syracuse in the game against Duke where there was a turnover on downs, fumble recovery, and an interception, and Syracuse came away with 0 points. That's a potential 28 points, maybe even a little bit more. Syracuse came away with nothing. That's something to circle, understand, and remember as the team moves forward. And as Julian and I move forward, we're going to take a step aside for a fast break. When we come back, we'll be giving our thoughts a little bit here on Liberty and what we can take away from Liberty as they come into Syracuse 4-0, and we're pushing to be ranked in the nation's top 25 as an independent school that does not have a conference. We'll talk about Liberty, and we'll give our picks right after this, where sports truly meets life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. He kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have at any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
Cafe Cabal Mobile Cafe brings the cafe experience to you. We'll roll out to your neighborhood or office, ready to serve our locally crafted espresso bar to our loyal patrons. Inquire at cafecubal.com. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, located on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, is home to over 40 flavors with more than 200 flavors in their total wheelhouse. Sky's the limit for this sweet and savory Central New York company. Keep it local at your parties, fundraisers, wedding showers, baby showers, and more by calling 315-450-MA-PA. That's 315-450-6272 for popcorn bars with custom flavors and colors at your upcoming event. Make sure to visit them on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. And for more information, go to maandpazsnacks.com. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you? The Millhouse Market, located on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York, is worth the drive every time. Make sure you download their app by going to the Google Play or Apple App Store and searching Millhouse Market. You'll have their entire menu at your fingertips. All of their salads to their quinoa bowls, their rice bowls, over 30 different sandwiches named after the families that helped to settle today's Pulaski, as well as all of their homemade desserts. I put up some pictures of, I just tried the strawberry mascarpone as well as the Samoa brownies. They are second to none. Absolutely incredible. Just the brownie itself is more than enough dessert. And then you put that topping on there, different flavors and different mixtures. Awesome and amazing. I'm sure it's great if you make a Sunday out of it as well. The Millhouse Market, worth the drive every time. Contactless pay on the app, as well as a drive-up window so you can stay in your car, grab your food, and go, making it easy, keeping us safe, and always, always being worth the drive. Fantastic service, fantastic people, and fantastic flavors at the Millhouse Market, 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York. You know what to do. With that being stated, we're back inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, and I have my pumpkin spice chai. I talk about it with Julian all the time, and it's sitting here with me this morning, and it's keeping me feeling all warm and comfy. Julian has the sun. I have chai. So, like, that's what keeps me warm, and we got to get Julian one when he comes up here. So, very excited to have Mr. Whigham here with us this morning, and Julian and I were talking about it on the break here. We're going to talk about Liberty in a minute, but before we go there, we must go here. Andre Cisco played 2 games this season. He came into this season of 2020 leading the nation as active leaders in career interceptions. He had 12. He gets his 13th this season, leading the entire country of Division 1A FBS schools of 130 schools, leading everybody, the Big 10, the Big 12, the ACC, the SEC, the Pac-12, so on and so forth. Andre Cisco getting it done. He didn't get the respect he deserved in the ACC preseason voting. I voted for him. Apparently not enough other people did. I don't know what they were watching. The man's leading the nation in interceptions, but he got injured before the Georgia Tech game, and it was given this week by in our call with Dino Babers on Monday. He gave the official word that Andre Cisco was done yesterday night. As I was spending some time speaking with the players in our Zoom call, it was made officially official by Andre Cisco around, I think it was like 7:14 or 7:18 p.m. Eastern time, that he is going into the NFL draft and opting out of this season. What are your thoughts on the Andre Cisco factor?
Yeah, so I was just, when I heard the news, I was incredibly disappointed. One, that he was leaving, but two, that an injury altered his future in such a way. Julian, if you listen to Julian Whigham, I'm always going to be a player advocate, making the most money as you can, always pro-labor, yada, yada. And to see him end his season because of an ACL, I'm wondering what kind of guidance he was given before the year. There's a draft board that you can submit to if you're a junior and if you're eligible for the NFL draft the following year. You can submit your name to get back, or you're going to be a top 3-round pick. Will I go in the first 3 rounds? And they just hit you back with a yes or a no. And then some agents may email you and tell you what kind of draft grades they have. That kind of gives you an idea where you'll go. PFF had Andre Cisco set to go in the first round at 23rd. And I've seen other mock drafts placing him in the first round as well. I don't know if he was a first-round pick or not. Personally, I thought he was a high second. But to see him go down with an ACL, that injury is going to take him at least 8 months to recover from and get back to full speed, which means he's going to miss all of his combine training. He'll probably miss the combine. All he will have is his tape and interview process, and then the doubts that he'll come back the same. I mean, he made his money off of being agile and athletic and going after the ball, and teams don't know how he'll come back, and it's hard to make that same investment. But it's important for people to know that as high as he was projected, let's say 23rd, that's a $6 million signing bonus. If he were to drop to the 3rd round, he could make as low as $700,000. That is a 10,000% decrease in guaranteed money in your career. Now, I know we all kind of get caught up in the dollar figure. Oh, so sad, he's making $700,000. But if you were to lose 10,000% of your earnings when you first started working, I think you'd be a lot worse off than you are right now, right? So that injury to me was really frustrating to see because he didn't have to play this year. And I get it, not wanting to quit on your team, and maybe he had got a draft grade that suggested he should play. But I think that this season itself, if you were a top pick, could have treated it like a bowl game where it didn't really matter. You could have treated this like a bowl game, not play, protect your draft stock, rely on your tape, and then come in for April and got drafted. And I think that whoever encouraged him to play did him a real disservice if he was already projected to go in the first 2 rounds, because there was no reason for this. It's a little bit disappointing. I hope that his agent or whoever represents him can find a way to recruit some of that money, whether that's insurance or not. But just to speak on Cisco, I think he was probably the greatest defensive back in the history of Syracuse football. I don't know how many other DBs have 2 All-Americans, All-Conference honors, multiple Defensive Player of the Week awards, or led the country in interceptions 2 years in a row until he got hurt. I don't know if that's ever happened before. I think number 7 is one of the rare numbers that should be hanging in the rafters, coming from a former defensive back at Syracuse University myself.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. I think that we may have just seen the greatest DB that Syracuse has had. And I think looking back on it, I mean, you look at leading the nation. And it's not like he did a good job in the ACC or he did a good job in the Northeast or he did a good job in the last 10 years at Syracuse. The man led the nation. Takeaways looked easy for him. He led the charge of a defense with him and Trill Williams and Kingsley Jonathan and Josh Black and so on and Afatu Melifonwu and so many talented guys that are there. And the way that he will end his career at Syracuse is heartbreaking to me because selfishly, I won't get to see him this season, and I feel like it went by really too fast. We never got to see him in a home game. He played at North Carolina and at Pittsburgh. He was injured before Georgia Tech's game, so we didn't get to see him. And it's Heartbreak Ridge. Babers keeps saying that, but about different things. But it is, and it's just a very, very tough thing to try and wrap your head around. But I advocate for the players too. I try to see all angles and all sides. I want nothing more than for him to have a fantastic career. He's first-round talent. Unfortunately, Syracuse has not had a nice bridge to the NFL during the Dino Babers era, and I don't know if that has to do with scheming. I don't know if it's, the team's not winning, so there's not respect for that. I don't know if Dino doesn't have the network and the bridges or maybe the rapport, whatever it may be. I know he had Jimmy Garoppolo, but in his time at Syracuse, guys are not getting drafted, and if they are getting drafted, they're not getting drafted high. Andre Cisco on an Ohio State or a Florida or a Texas, he's going in the first round. He deserves to go in the first round injury-free, and I don't know if he will. And that's the thing that is very heartbreaking to me, is that he deserves it. Have you been able to put your finger on anything, Julian, as to make sense of why the Dino Babers era has been so poor with transferring guys into the NFL?
This is from I've never been a scout. I've never been paid to give an opinion on guys who, why, and where they go. But I have spoken to a lot of different NFL scouts and what goes into it, just out of pure curiosity. My time with the Bills was probably the most insightful. One, because I was, not to neg myself, but I was kind of surprised that they took me, at least as an undrafted. I wasn't really expecting that. But going into, just out of curiosity, hey, what goes into picking a guy? And now I'm gassing myself up. To that scout, he was like, for you had a really great pro day. We didn't watch much of your tape. We wanted an athlete at the position, and we want to coach him. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then they go on, and this guy went on to say, every scouting department is different in terms of how they scout a guy. For us, with you, we were looking for an athlete. Your tape didn't matter as much to us. But on the other side of that, some scouting, they only care about your tape. And they may not care about what kind of athlete or what kind of numbers you put up during your pro day or combine. And other scouting, they look at your analytics. And, the Patriots were a big analytics team. And all these different scouting departments use different things to explain to you how they pick their guys and why they pick them. And insight from coaches, usually it matters more for quarterbacks. Think of, the Duke connection, the Cutcliffe and the quarterback they ended up taking. I can't remember his name. I don't know why I just lost it. But
Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones. And usually when it comes to picking a quarterback, coaches' input has a lot more sway because coaches spend much more time with the quarterback than any other position. But scouting departments may look at, for other positions like athletes, a corner, a safety, receiver, they may use their own process for picking a guy. So it may be that Syracuse is they get a ding because they haven't played well, and that may not bring many scouts. But I think most scouting departments do their due diligence on guys to make sure they're hitting everyone that they should, and guys end up getting picked more often where they should, but guys go higher. If you're Ohio State, Alabama, yada yada, they may go a little bit higher than we may expect, and we see them more in the first round because coaches know the Urban Meyers, they know the Nick Sabans, they know they're well coached, they know what kind of attitude they have because they went to those programs, so they're going to go higher. But if you're coming from a place like Syracuse, your tape and your numbers have to show for guys to give you an opportunity. And I think that the guys at Syracuse that have gone mid-round, maybe a little bit later, Zaire Franklin obviously not getting drafted, are going in the 7th, much later than most people thought. I think that's more of teams just having a certain value system, and that's where guys in Syracuse fall. So with Cisco, I expect him to be a first, second round guy because the most valuable thing as a safety that you can do is take the ball away. And he does the best of any safety in the country. Some guys say tackling or yada yada, but my biggest thing is I've heard from DB coaches, we don't pay you to tackle, my guy. We don't pay you to tackle. So I was like, okay. And that's, I think, a truth for every position in the secondary in the NFL. So I thought Cisco was a first-round pick. It would have been nice to see someone from Syracuse make the board with everybody watching in prime time. But as it stands, I think he'll probably fall to that third-round range with his injury. But Syracuse and their connections, I think it's more about putting guys out there and winning games and the talent showing, and that unfortunately for Syracuse hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, it's a tough break. It's definitely tough to see what's going on with Syracuse and with this situation with Andre Cisco because he is first-round talent and he should be in the first round. So hopefully things will work out for him and things will move forward in a positive way as we get set for the 2021 NFL Draft, which will be coming up in, obviously not too many of a crazy months. I mean, it's in May time, so we're in October now, so it's actually not as far away as people may think. But I don't want to rush time away. I want to enjoy the time that we have. So final notes here. Syracuse is going to play Liberty. Malik Willis is a dual-threat quarterback. 13 carries against Louisiana Monroe last week for 87 yards, 6.7 yards a carry. Had a touchdown. Behind him, we had Peyton Pickett. 7 carries, 34 yards, and a touchdown. 2 rushing touchdowns for Liberty in the game. Malik Willis was 11 of 29, 177 yards, no touchdown, and an interception. So, relying on his feet, here's the thing. Malik Willis did not throw a single touchdown pass, and the team won 40-7. So, there's something to be said about that and about a victory that came from that. This is how it went down. Pickett had his touchdown. Willis had his touchdown, both runs. Then Trayon Sibley had a fumble return, and then Alex Barber had a 42-yard field goal, put the team up 24-0 at the half. Then in the third quarter, there was a blocked punt by Chancellor Smith, and then in the fourth quarter, Alex Barber had another field goal, and then there was a punt return by Demario Douglas. So what I'm really saying to you folks is that Liberty has a dual-threat quarterback, but Liberty, not only having a dual-threat quarterback, they also have really, really good special teams and defense. You talk about a blocked punt that's returned for a touchdown and a punt return 73 yards for a touchdown. Special teams-wise, could be the best thing that best team Syracuse has seen this season on special teams. Daz Newsom was supposed to do a lot of good things for North Carolina. He had one of them called back. But Liberty good in all 3 phases of the game. And it says something about them when you only have 2 offensive touchdowns and you win the game 40-7. Your thoughts, Julian?
Yeah, so when you're rushing the football that well, I guess you don't need to throw, right? But I was with this matchup between Liberty and Syracuse. One, I feel like Syracuse should win the game. If you look at Liberty from a talent perspective, my memory is terrible, but I'm going off of between 2016 and 2019. I think they ranked 180, 171, 130, 137, and 130. These are in the hundreds. Like, this is where they're recruiting at, right? 180, 171, 137, 131. That is well below.
Yeah, they were in the hundreds this year going into the season.
Yeah, they're well below Syracuse. I not to disrespectful or anything, but I almost don't care what they do. They shouldn't be able to do it against Syracuse because they don't have the same talent. Like, this is the thing. So this is how every fan should look at this. Whenever your football team, if you are ever upset by a smaller opponent, I don't care if Liberty's independent or whatever they think they are. If they're beaten by an FCS opponent or some Division II, yada yada, and I'm disrespecting Liberty because they should be, you have been outcoached.
I like how when people are like, Dan, you didn't pull any punches. I'm like, I think Julian just punched you right in the face on that one. So,
I'm trying. That's the thing too. It's like,
bro, I'm not knocking you. Your honesty is honesty, but it's like people say, "Wow, Dan, you went in today," and so I'm just sitting back here, and I'm not disagreeing. I mean, Syracuse on any given day, you're an ACC school, you're playing an independent school that's not named Notre Dame. You should win this game swimmingly. This is your Citadel. This is your Abilene Christian. This is your Church of Latter-day Saints, Miami University of Pennsylvania through Iowa. So, yes, Liberty should lose this game tremendously, but it is Syracuse. It is what we've seen on the field, and Liberty is going to attack them where they know they can.
Yeah, they're gonna. I mean, it's obvious they're gonna try to run the ball. They think that they can run the ball. They've done pretty well. They've been good at it. But again, it's one of those things where Syracuse on the defensive side of the ball. Actually, let's talk about Liberty's offensive line. They average less than 300 pounds across the board. All five guys, less than 300 pounds. They should get their butt whooped. Like that's just what it is. They should. Because Syracuse, this is every part of the program at Syracuse. If they lose this game, should be ashamed. Strength coach should be ashamed if Liberty is able to run the ball. Defensive coach should be ashamed if Liberty is able to run the ball. And I say these things because I played for the university. I have taken years off of my life to play for Syracuse University, so I am deeply invested in their success. I want them to win the game because I care about the university. Because I care about it, I'm a little more critical of them, and I praise them a little more than I should. It's both ways. And in this case, I can't believe in a world where they lose Liberty because they're more talented across the board. They're better. They have a much better coaching staff. They have a much better support staff. There's no reason that this game should be lost by Syracuse. It's just none. Across the board. So when I hear about what Liberty can do and what they can't do, I don't care what the Sisters of the Poor can do. Because they're the Sisters of the Poor. They shouldn't win the game. So Syracuse, my thing is they should be able to play we're better than you offense, chuck the ball downfield, score, and end this game early. That's my expectation. That's what should happen. Chuck the ball downfield, score. On the other side of the ball, play man defense, plug up the gaps. We're better than you defense. Man defense, plug up the gaps. That should be the only game plan. No other plays. 2 damn plays. And that's it. Because that's how they should play. They're a better team across the board. There's no excuses. So, if they lose this game, disappointment, frustration. We're going to be talking about, the young guys, yada, yada. That's going to be the talking points. But I will be personally dejected if they lose this football game because I think Syracuse is better than that. I think Coach Davis is better than that. I think Coach E, the strength coach, is better than that. I think across the board, I think that this staff, these players, I think that this university is better than that. And it would be really disappointing to see them lose this football game in any capacity.
I'm not gonna knock you for that. This would be one of the most disappointing losses that Syracuse has ever had, dating back to Akron. That happened under Greg Robinson that I brought up before, where an emaciated kangaroo, and if you don't know what emaciated means, it means that they look like they're skinny, they're stick and bones, right? An emaciated kangaroo with a beer gut. It was a skinny-looking, bony kangaroo with a giant beer belly. That mascot, that team beat Syracuse. Akron beat Syracuse in the Dome, and I had to sit there and watch it with my dad. A loss to Liberty is going to feel very close. Worth noting, Syracuse's 21 sacks in 4 games is the worst in the nation. Second only to the team that they just lost to, Duke, who's given up 19. Boston College has given up 16. Texas State 16, Kansas 15, and Florida State 15. Louisville 14, Wake Forest 13. How about that? The ACC in the bottom of the nation with numerous teams that have given up double-digit sacks. Syracuse has given up more sacks than anybody in the nation, averaging 5.25 sacks a game given up. 21. You don't see 21 sacks on some NFL teams' offensive lines in an entire season of 17 games.
Yeah.
21 sacks in 4 games. So, you lead the nation in turnovers, but you also lead the nation in opposition sacks. That says something. You're giving the offense the ball more, and you're doing absolutely nothing with it. More opportunities to fail, you got to stop failing. That's what it comes down to. It's kind of like being in a relationship, right? You get a chance. All right, you know what? I forgive you. You're going to be all right. You do it again. You get another chance, and another chance, and another chance, and another chance. And eventually, the person on the other side of the relationship goes, I don't believe that you're going to do anything good with this chance that you have. And we see the frustration. And the closing thing, Julian, is Taj Harris. Right in front of me. Sitting right in front of the press box. I watched Taj on 3rd and 8. Catch a pass from Rex Culpepper. The pass, for first and foremost, the hike was low. Secondly, there was a wide receiver crossing him that almost would have hit the ball and caused a fumble. I don't know how the heck Rex even got it. Kudos to him. But he picks up the ball. He throws it to Taj. Taj gets a 3-yard gain. He gets wrapped up. He goes to the ground. He punches his right hand to the turf repeatedly. Screams. Takes his helmet off. Throws it. Screams again. You played for Syracuse. You played on a team at this level of the ACC. You know what it's like to live in the world of being a college football player. When Taj did that, what was your reaction?
Yeah, so I think you're referring to the tunnel screen that was called on 3rd and 8. And my thinking is he ended up getting stops, and I think he saw a lot of daylight in front of him. So it stems from the frustration of not making the play. Right, there was a chance, and then boom, this one guy got me, shoot. And then on top of that, I think the emotions from the frustration of the rest of the game went into that as well. No one's that mad they didn't score. I think it has much more to do with everything that mounted up to that point, like just the frustration of the overthrows, how the offense was moving the ball, and then finally getting an opportunity and being this close to breaking one and, getting stopped, whether someone missed a block or whatever the case may be, the play didn't work the way it was expected to. And I think that was just a moment of frustration let out all at one time. I watched guys like Taj Harris to me is a lot like Dyshawn Davis in terms of like his player type. Like I wasn't a guy who was gonna react very often. There was a few times I did, but I tried to stay as even keel as possible. But Taj, he'll show you how he feels. That's okay. That's good. Players should be that way. And I think that seeing that was a reflection of where this team is. I think it was a reflection of where that team was at during that point in the game. And it was just a lot of frustration and anger at, dang it, this isn't working. And it's frustrating when things aren't going the way they're supposed to. So I think that was a reflection of where Syracuse football is right now and where it was at that point in the game. Just frustrated because they're trying and they're almost there, but for whatever reason, it's not working. And as someone who's been there before, I get it, I understand it. I'm frustrated watching it. And you hope that they have a way or find a way to rectify these issues as soon as possible.
Yeah, there's a lot to look at, a lot to unpack. The pregame show is going to be coming to you, as you know, right before the game. The game is at noon. That is a nice way of the ACC and the nation saying, if you want to be on television, we don't really want to put you on television, so we'll put you on at noon. Syracuse pulled a bunch of noon games here that they played. LSU, I believe it was 8 out of 12. Syracuse has been nothing but noon, this season for reality. I mean, and they're going to continue to be even against Clemson. So Syracuse will be at noon Eastern time, and that game will be at the Dome, of course. I will be there for Liberty at Syracuse. Before that, at 9 a.m. Eastern time, I'll be in this studio bringing you our pregame show, and then we'll be doing our postgame show at the Wildcat Sports Pub like we did last week when it came to Duke at Syracuse. We appreciate everybody coming out and everybody watching on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT. Julian, there's so much to talk about, and I feel like I literally am like, hello and good morning to Wake Up Call. Julian and I need to, I feel like we're just stepping into, the start of the conversation. So, there's a lot to be had and a lot to be said. And maybe you and I can do a little bit of an expose this week outside of this. But as always, I appreciate your help and everything you bring to the table. You are somebody that I value as a friend and as a co-host. I am extremely honored. So I always appreciate your time and everything you bring to the table.
Man, I appreciate that. And thank you for having me, man. This is always a great time coming in, talking some ball, just talking with my boys. So, man, I appreciate you having me on. I thank you for the opportunity, man.
Absolutely, man. So I'll be in touch with you. And I got an idea, because there's more that we need to talk about, and people need to see our facial reactions. So I have a thought, and I'll text you about it when we take a step aside here. So I look forward to talking with you soon.
All right, then. I'll catch you a little bit later.
All right, take care. That coming from Julian Whigham here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora this morning, where sports truly meets life, inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. And we're going to end this video, start a new video, because we got to jump right into what's going on here with fantasy football and Mr. Mike Sofka. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to get Mike onto the broadcast. We're going to end this video. For those of you on Facebook, follow us to the next one in just a couple minutes.